as we start the last climb here up to the finishing line, they're just 16 kilometers from the top. Wouter Poels on the front at the moment, descended very quickly, has rejoined the two front runners, and these really are now the last three survivors of a 13-man breakaway. We think Damiano Cunego is lost in no man's land between these three and the peloton, but that's about it. And Sky have strengthened at the front, because coming from the breakaway in the white jersey there, the British champion Peter Kenyuk is now doing work at the front here, as long as he can hold up here before he actually does crack, and that's all in the favour of Chris Froome. And I think we've just seen Dario Cataldo there just fall back. But Contador has had problems.
Yeah, he had a bike change just a few kilometres before we started this climb, and he had a bit of a scare as he was getting onto the back of the peloton coming through the cars, when he was almost taken out by a motorbike, but he's safely back in there now.
I'm just wondering here, because earlier on today there was a fighting incident, and I have a feeling that the race referee is telling him he's disqualified from the race, and he's sitting up and he's pulling out. Well, I did say at the time that there's only one rule: if you start boxing matches, you get disqualified. There's no second offence. He's out. Yeah,
it does seem rather harsh, doesn't it, really? It was a bit of a handbags, really, but that's the decision almost certainly that the commissaire told him: you're out of the race. But really, you should be pulled up and your race number taken off. But it's certainly not happy.
Graham, I'll tell you what, we saw that incident, and he was the man that pulled back Rovney first of all, and then Rovney did react, but the referee was right there on the right shoulder of the riders.
I'm wondering if, I mean, because it takes two, really, doesn't it? So whether Rovney's been pulled out as well, because it was Rovney we saw bringing Contador back to that group, wasn't it, before?
Indeed it was. I think we can have a look at that incident again here. You see, he had his hand on his saddle, and then Rovney knocked it off and put his hand on his shoulder, Brambili's shoulder, and then the fight started. And really, you just don't do that. It's the one thing in cycling we rarely see, thank heavens, but when it happens, the referees usually are extremely strict.
Yeah, and what you have to say is it's really about not so much those two riders, they're silly for doing that, but it's actually bringing danger to the other riders. They could have brought one of the other riders off.
Well, he feels the aggrieved party, and he's looking pretty emotional there, but Gianluca Brambilla is going to remember his first event.
Just hearing that Rovney has been disqualified as well, so they've both been thrown out.
Yeah, and I think that was the only thing would happen there. So they're both gone. So Contador has lost a strong teammate there too in Ivan Rovney. Not too sure what that means, but he's saying goodbye. So Brambini and Ivan Rovney, part of the break all day. Not too sure why they started fighting, but they got stuck in, and the referee took quite a while to decide on it. He may have had to refer to the chief referee, who always drives behind the main field, before taking that decision.
Yeah, I think from what I've heard as well on the bits and pieces that they've had discussions with team managers of both teams as well.
Meanwhile, Peter Kenyuk at the front here now, doing a magnificent job, having spent most of the race over the mountains with the 13 leaders. He's dropped back on the last climb of San Lorenzo, joined the front of the main group, which is down to about 25 men, and picked up his team captain Chris Froome, and he's showing the pace making for as long as he can here. The poker face there, the man in blue spots, he's lost the lead in the King of the Mountains today. Alejandro Valverde is not worried about that. The man in the white jersey, on loan from Valverde by the way, is Joaquim Rodriguez. He's looking to explode on the ramp when it gets steep, and it does get steep. We start to hit the high slopes when we get to kilometre 2.5, and it stays pretty high, and then we'll hit it really steeply again at 5.5 up the climb, and again at just under 8 kilometres up the climb. So this really is a tough climb.
Yeah, it's a very fairly evenly graded climb. It's around 8, 9, 10% virtually whole of the last 7 or 8 kilometres.
Well, it looks now as though these two riders are going to be left alone now, because they're going past the race. He's pointing at the Saxo Tinkoff rider there, because that's Brambilla. He's pointing at Rovney, who is still in this race, and yet we have heard on the radio that he has been disqualified, but they haven't told him, because he's right in front of Contador just now. can have a look at that again here. This is Gianluca Brambilla, suddenly spots Rovny there. Well, I don't think, in all honesty, from what we saw, you can do one without the other one, Graham.
No, it seems a very strange situation. I'm sure we'll get clarification later. In the meantime, I think we've just got to look forward to a really good race up to the top of this climb.
Right, well, we're on to one of the steeper sections for the leaders of the race. These two here, sorry, we've stayed with the front of the main peloton. They're approaching this first steep section, and Peter Kenyuk on the front. We just feel that Chris Froome is having a great day today. We heard him tell a teammate just off the microphone of one of our cameras, his answer to the question was, how are you going? He says, I feel really good. And he's ridden like he looks really good today, so we'll see as we get to this last climb. He's got to gain time today. He needs a little bit of time. He's locked together on 1 minute 20 seconds with Rodriguez, and so the equal third in effect. This is the rider who won the 7th day of the race, Alessandro De Marchi, and most likely to succeed as well if it were to happen again. He won at Alcadete.
These two just still working together. It's going to be very difficult for them to stay out. In fact, almost impossible. I think once the contenders for overall really start their battle, I think it'll probably be tempo for another few kilometres yet, but once we get into that final 6 to 7 kilometres, I think there'll be a real battle.
Well, I think Wout Poels is just about cooked at the front there. He was the weaker of the two Omega riders up there. They disqualified Brambilla, and so I'm not sure how much help Wout Poels can be now to keeping that breakaway up front. It's coming inside 1 minute and 30 now. Extremely good pacemaking here by Peter Kenyuk. We saw him win his British Championship in Abergavenny. It was a very, very strong ride indeed. He had to take on his teammate Ben Swift to beat him. Now, Swifty normally beats him when they're in training, but when it mattered, Kenyuk delivered the winning sprint in Abergavenny. It was a great victory for him. Well, these two are heading up. They've got 12 kilometres left to ride. We are hearing that the race jury have indeed also disqualified Ivan Rovny. And you can see here he's dropping back from that Contador group, looking a little bit confused. But we saw the fight and both riders out of the Vuelta. And here now the move is coming. Wout Poels just went to the front. He looked as though he was going to move away, and in fact it was De Marchi dropping back to make room to sprint around Wout Poels, stop him getting on his wheel. And at 1 minute and 7 seconds and 11.5 kilometres to go, De Marchi is alone again, just like he was on stage 7.
We were certainly looking the strongest rider for some time in this breakaway, but he has gone away now. I think it's going to be tough for him to stay away, but he's going to have a go.
Well, I think he had to go because Wout Poels was getting tired. He came back on the descent of the last climb, and De Marchi may not have wanted to have gone this early, but he's no choice really, because here's the peloton. There is Cunego on the left of our picture. He's the last man, as far as we know, up the road, except the two front runners now. He's back in the group, while Peter Kenyuk, who was up there, has now come back here. And what a job Kenyuk is doing for setting the pace. He's going to go for as long as he can to try and put Chris Froome in with a chance of winning this day. This is coming up to the steepest section of the climb now. The steepest part of this whole climb is around 12.5%, and then he will go over a little summit, and he'll have about half a kilometre of downhill before we attack the last 8.5 kilometres up to the finish. Still nobody's made a move in this group yet. How long is it going to be before we see one, or are they going to all come in fairly close, as we've seen in most of the mountain top finishes so far? Chris Froome there just took a look over his right shoulder. He may not have seen Contador on his back wheel there in red, but I'm sure he knows it's exactly where he is. Froome has always shown ultimate respect Contador has always shown the respect to Froome. He's always said he's the man to beat in this race. And although at times Chris has looked to be losing time, he's always come back and gained time. Well, here he is. He cuts a lonely figure on the side of the final first category climb of this horrendously difficult day. 16th day of the Vuelta a España, Alessandro De Marchi. We've seen him up front and do this before. He won the 7th stage of the race, but it's still a big ask now. Yes, he is gaining time. He's added half a minute. What's happened down here? Oh, it's okay. It's Phil Dignan. Well, it's not okay. It's bad luck, but it's not Chris Froome, as he's got a front wheel puncture here. And in these days of health and safety, they used to file off the lugs on those front wheels so they could do a fast change. They're not allowed to do that now, so that if the wheels did release, they don't come off the bicycle frame. He's underway, and that's when a little look back there as Phil Dignan stops with a flat front tyre. That on a road like this, that is incredibly unlucky. As we see 5 kilometres to climb, yes, De Marchi is still clear, but no, the time gap is no longer going up. It's come inside 1 minute 20 now. He's lost 15 seconds in the last 500 metres. This is the peloton, and there's Kenyuk gone. The legs have said enough is enough. What a brilliant ride that boy has had today, as he now decides he can't do it anymore. So, and we've lost Phil Dignan as well, remember, with a front wheel puncture. But suddenly we've hit another steep section on the course here. Warren Barguil has dropped off the back there. This is Contador now on the wheel of Chris Froome. Just looking at the riders who suddenly have cracked. There's a big man. Warren Barguil was the hero yesterday to Covadonga. He's into the back group.
Sink lost contact as well, so we're getting down to the real nitty-gritty now, and it's all the main favourites are still there. The big loser, of course, today is Uran.
This at 4.6 kilometres. These boys are going to see 5 kilometres to go. And this is the last big push by Mikel Nieve for Chris Froome before Froome will have to do it himself. Boy, that group has halved in about a kilometre as we go under 5 to go. Chris Froome has one teammate left now, and then he's going to have to see if he can hit out at Alberto Contador and particularly also at Alejandro Valverde. Now, Dan Martin, he will know that the one man ahead of him overall by a couple of minutes, Rigoberto Urán, is not here and probably lost enough time to give Dan Martin a 6th place overall. So he'll want to stay in there as long as he possibly can.
Froome's accelerated.
There's the acceleration. Nieve says, that's it, it's up to you now. And so this is the push. Chris Froome has gone. Contador's followed. A reaction from Rodriguez and also from Valverde. The big four are on the move. Or are they? Because I'm not sure about Rodriguez.
No, I'm not sure about Valverde either. He's not got the strength to go around Rodriguez. Rodriguez has let the wheel go, and Valverde's not responded yet.
Oh, well, Froome has looked over his shoulder. He's seen the damage he's done to those two. He can't get rid of the gadfly on his back wheel, though, because Contador is looking pretty cool. Had no problem reacting to that acceleration by Chris Froome, and it was well advertised. This is Aru here. I've absolutely no idea where he is at the moment.
Yeah, he's just behind the Valverde Rodriguez group.
So he's reacted too late to that attack by Chris Froome. Maybe he couldn't do it, but he should be a good ally if he gets up with the bottom two riders in our picture. Rodriguez in the red shorts, Valverde. Fabian Aru is sitting overall in 5th place as he goes up to join the riders in the 4th and 2nd place.
Valverde's just making his own pace there, but this gap is opening at the moment, and the thing is, and the most important thing is, can Froome crack Contador?
Well, the thing is that Contador has followed Froome, but it's in his advantage here to try and ride with Froome, because overall Valverde is only 31 seconds behind Contador. There are bonuses on the top today. Remember, at the moment it's the 2nd and 3rd place, because we still have De Marchi at 33 seconds. I don't think he's going to hold two of the greatest climbers in the world off now at 3.7 kilometres to go. 4 for the chasers.
Yeah, I think Contador's going to be happy to let Froome do all the work here. I think they'll think Contador's really too worried about Valverde. He said that this morning, but I think he'll just let Froome do all the work, and if Froome can't crack him, we could see a counter-attack by Contador.
Two riders, both have won the Tour de France. Only the one in red has won the Tour of Spain twice, in fact. Froome has never done that. No British rider's ever done that. But this is the big push now to see if he can do it. Aru has tried to get up there and he's dropped again. There's been an acceleration by the man who shook his head. Valverde has accelerated.
Yeah, I'm sure Valverde's decided that I've got to try and close this gap if I can. If I've got any ambitions of winning the Vuelta, I cannot let these two riders get away.
And this is Demarchi, and it's a sad sight for Alessandro, because you look over his shoulder, he's going to see them coming, and he's going to get caught at around 3 kilometres to go. He knows now he won't hold off these two boys. There's a lot more at stake than first to the top of this mountain for Chris Froome and for Alberto Contador. They're making the Tour their own, and then it'll be a battle between those two. And let's not forget, Chris Froome in the short time trial may well go quicker than Alberto Contador, but Froome could do with opening a little bit of time on Contador.
Yeah, Contador will be happy with this, I think, at the moment. I think he'll be fine with letting Froome do all the work. Demarchi's now been caught. He'll do his best to try and stay with them, but I don't think that will be for too long.
Well, let's hope he can. Aru is fighting his way back up to the back wheel of Rodriguez. Rodriguez is gritting his teeth here. You've got to admire Alejandro Valverde. He's been a terrific competitor this year. 4th in the Tour de France. And those three riders up front are together now. Demarchi still looking pretty cool on the back wheel of Contador, who always prefers to climb out of the saddle, his lithe frame, as he throws that bike from one side to the other. Chris Froome just looks down and pedals as fast as he can.
Yeah, he's just keeping his own rhythm, Chris Froome. That's what he likes to do. Get into that rhythm and just keep it going. Whether it's enough to actually get rid of Alberto Contador remains to be seen.
Still Chris Froome, and the race referee is getting rather annoyed, I think, with our cameras being a bit too close here, as they're giving us perfect pictures, let's face it. Contador happy to allow the pace to be dictated to him by Chris Froome. Remember, he has an advantage over Froome of 1 minute and 20 seconds. There is a bonus across the line of 6 seconds.
Yeah, we all thought this could be the decisive stage of the Vuelta, but it certainly looks like it is going to be the most decisive stage.
If there was to be a red jersey tonight, and assuming that Chris Froome were to win, he would still need 1 minute. Well, Froome would get, Contador would get 6 seconds. He'd need over a minute's lead over the rider in red to secure the red jersey, but that's not his plan right now. His plan is just to gain some time. There's still the rows left to win this Tour. 2.4 kilometres. Demarchi can't handle that acceleration. Another steep section at 2.4 kilometres to go. This is around 11.5%.
The gap's going up steadily, isn't it now? 34 seconds between Froome and the Valverde Rodriguez group, and so he's still doing everything he can at the moment. And can he take enough to move into second overall?
Well, if he were to take second, he'd need about 43 seconds over the Valverde group. He's got 35 at the moment. There's a chance here that Chris Froome is riding up into second place here, because there's still the space on the hill. 2.1 kilometres. 38 seconds now. Once they're through 45, Valverde would need to finish third to have any chance of retaining second. But I have a feeling for the first time we're seeing Valverde right on his limit.
Valverde is doing all he can just to stay in touch with us, but he's losing ground all the time. Contador, meanwhile, sitting on Froome, looking very comfortable.
Well, Contador is doing what leaders do, and that means that he just has to wait and see. 43 seconds and a second place bonus for Froome, and he will be second overall. He's 41 at the moment. There's no signs of him slowing down. In fact, I think we're going to see more signs of him going quicker here. And watch out, I thought Contador was planning on trying to attack him there.
Certainly looked out
the way he jumped out the saddle, I thought he was going to have a go.
think he is now. Oh, maybe it just looks like every minute. It looks like he's almost holding back Contador, but I think we may well see him make a move here, because he could put the Vuelta out of the reach of everybody else if he did that.
I'm not so sure for the moment that Contador can offer any more here. Chris Froome is making a very, very determined effort, and he said at the start he felt good, and he's proving it now. This is his day today, I think. This is the face of Joaquim Rodriguez. Flicks the elbow. He needs some help from Valverde. I'm not sure he's going to get it. Aru is coming back into the scene. He won the 11th day of this race, and that's when he felt he could be on the podium by the time we get to the end on Sunday. May not think the same right now. Another nasty kick around these hairpin bends. It's when the bicycle rides up and slaps you on the nose. Especially Chris Froome's nose, because he has this habit of looking down, driving, and then looking up to see how it's going.
Well, as it stands there, Froome will go into second place overall.
There's more time to be gained yet on this climb. And by riding like this, of course, he's not getting rid of Contador. He's going to lose the stage. If Contador is to win this, he wouldn't want to win the Vuelta without taking one stage of the 21 days. And he hasn't got one yet. Well, Aru has fought his way back to the other two, which is probably a sign that they are not going as smoothly as they once were.
No, they're going in fits and starts. Rodriguez has been leaving a lot of the pacemaking to Valverde, but he's just started trying to do something now. They have been holding it around the 40-second mark for quite some time, so they are keeping it there.
It's going to be desperately close, this, when they come up to the line. You can't tell with Contador just how much he's hurting. He never gives anything away. Froome is just trying to get the maximum out of his body now. He's giving it 100% here. Every second counts is what he's saying to himself. He wants to be in second place by the end of this day. Look at the crowd here. We go down to the bottom to see the others chasers, but now we're at 1 kilometre to go. 1,000 metres. Froome is expecting to be attacked. He keeps looking across at the whereabouts of the wheel of Contador.
We're going to see an attack from Contador. Or we are just going to see these riders go over the line. We don't know. It may just be, I mean, it's very difficult, as you say, to see whether Contador is suffering or not.
Well, if you take a look here, I must say the fight back by Rodriguez and Valverde is going to make this a very tight overall classification tonight. Chris Froome might get into second by a second, the way it's looking just at the moment.
I think there are signs there that Contador...
Here he goes. Here he goes at 500 metres. Can Chris Froome just raise it? Otherwise, he'll lose not only the win bonus, but the gap as well. Having made all of the running, Contador has done a typical acceleration, and Chris Froome has had no answer to these accelerations all week. And Contador now wants a few seconds buffer. Remember, he was 31 ahead of Valverde. Tonight, he will be a lot more ahead of Chris Froome with a ride like this.
Yeah, he may well be just riding himself into the prime position now to win this Vuelta. He's ridden it well tactically, just let Froome do all the pacemaking, and he's just made an attack, and this is really a strong ride, and a ride of real dominance by Contador now.
It's going to feel good too, because now the race leader, and he's held it for a week by the time he reaches the finishing line today, but he hadn't won any of the stages, and he's putting that to rights now on the 16th day of the Vuelta. Alberto Contador is back, the man who retired from the Tour de France with a hairline fracture of his tibia. He said he wouldn't be competitive till the second week, till the last week rather. Well, he is winning his stage in the last week, Graham.
Yeah, definitely, that's right. But that, before the Vuelta, that's all he thought he could come into this Vuelta and do, is win a stage or two. But he's come into it, and he's looked the most consistent rider throughout the 2 weeks we've had so far.
Well, he's about to pick up in history his 21st red jersey, and about to win his 4th stage of the Vuelta in history as well. At a big time gap, we've been talking seconds for a long time now. Froome started a minute 20 behind Contador. He will be more than that now. There is a 10-second win bonus as well. 6 seconds for Chris Froome. There's a 4-second gain there. But Alberto Contador has done what he does best when he has the form, and he's got the form. He's shown that to us as he hits the line now. The clock has started, and Alberto Contador wins the day, his first of this year's Vuelta. Chris Froome has ridden brilliantly today, fights for every second, but at the end of the day, he's lost 14 seconds plus 4, so he's actually now going to be 1 minute 38 behind Alberto Contador tonight.
Valverde is still giving it everything. He's managed to get rid of Rodriguez, so Valverde will hang on, and will he hang on to third place?
Now, is Valverde going to survive in third place? He's on his way up. Well, in the distance, it's going to be Alessandro De Marchi. He's desperately tired here. He just about sees the finishing line. He'll be happy enough with that. He crosses at 48 seconds. And then the arrival of fast-firing Alejandro Valverde, 53, 54 seconds, followed by Rodriguez, just lost a couple of seconds and not happy. But you know, Valverde may have done just enough to deprive Froome of second overall tonight. Well, the eve of the second rest day, and Chris Froome has given his all today to try and get red. At the end of the day, as so often happens, you lose time. We've seen that happen a lot over this past week. But Contador has had the strength to follow the moves that matter and then deal with them at the end.
Well, there's Contador having a quick look round. He's let Froome do all the work up the climb, and he's bided his time, and he's really proved to be the strong man of this Vuelta, and he may well have just given himself victory in the Vuelta, barring accidents.
So, for the first time in this run of summit finishes, the race for the stage win and the overall were the same contest, and the overall race leader finally got his win. 15 seconds was Contador's gap over Froome on the line, plus 4 since he picked up a 10-second bonus over Froome's 6. Alessandro De Marchi took care of the third-place bonus. Alejandro Valverde came in 55 seconds down on the winner, 40 on Froome, with Joaquin Rodriguez the last man inside a minute of Contador, ahead of Fabio Aru, Dan Martin and Robert Hesink. We didn't see Rigoberto Urán finish, but he lost 15 minutes 46 after struggling through the stage clearly ill. And of course, two men didn't finish at all because they couldn't play nicely in the break. What started out as a bit of a playground dispute between Gianluca Brambilla and Ivan Rovny quickly escalated into a rolling exchange of backhanders, which sent Rovny back to the head teacher's car complaining his sunglasses had been broken. Now, we've seen riders disqualified for less, but usually once a stage is finished. Brambilla suffered the humiliation of being pulled out of the break when he was one of only 3 men left in it with 15 kilometres to go. After venting his indignation to his team car, he then slid back down the field to make sure that Rovny suffered the same fate. By then, though, Rovny was not only doing sterling work in the Tinkoff train for Alberto Contador, he'd already performed the crucial job of pacing his leader back to the bunch earlier on the climb. Nonetheless, he was eventually ordered out of the lead group, couldn't catch a lift from the team car and had to ride the rest of the way home as a sort of semi-civilian.
Alors j'ai été mis au courant tout de suite qu'il y avait eu un problème en tête de la course, que c'était assez grave, mais vous savez, quand on exclut 2 coureurs dans un grand tour comme la Vuelta à Espana, il faut qu'on soit sûr à 100%. Alors j'ai attendu de recevoir une tablette avec les images. C'est pour ça qu'on a suspendu notre décision, et dès que à ma voiture j'ai commencé à regarder les images, eh bien j'ai pris la décision avec le jury d'exclure les 2 coureurs pour voies de fait particulièrement graves et surtout atteinte à l'image du cyclisme en général et de la Vuelta à España en particulier.
Now, yesterday there was a long wait to present the green jersey to John Degenkolb. Today they didn't bother, they gave it to his soigneur. He eventually rolled in nearly 35 minutes down. And for the first time, Alberto Contador took to the podium to be presented with something other than the red jersey, although he pretended the Montera Picona was a cowboy hat anyway into the usual celebration.
When I'm there, I'm waiting for the attack of Froome because the Team Sky was incredible. Pulling very, very hard and wait for the attack of Froome. And Froome attack, I follow him, and after I looking back and I saw that Valverde and Joaquin is drop, and then I say, okay, today is my opportunity. I was with Froome all time, and when I look what is the moment exactly, I attack. and was perfect for me. I take the bonification, take the victory of the stage, and put more time to the other guys in the general.
I gave it everything I had in the final. I couldn't drop Alberto, and I just pushed on the same, and still got a week of racing ahead. So I think at least that moves me up a little bit in the general classification. But yeah, Alberto's going to be a hard one to beat.
Chris Froome beat everybody else, though, and has every chance of still beating Alejandro Valverde overall. He's just 3 seconds from moving up a step on the podium. The pair of them are at 1:36 and 1:39 behind Contador. Joaquin Rodriguez is another 50 seconds adrift in 4th, Fabio Aru's 5th, and Dan Martin up to 6th now, ahead of Robert Hesink and Samuel Sanchez. Sadly, though, Rigoberto Urán's challenge is over. He's 16th, nearly 19 minutes down, and ill, so who knows how long he'll continue.